Assalamu alaikum and good morning. I would like to welcome you all to the 4th Annual Australian Islamic Schooling Conference and Forum, or AAISC4 for short. This year's focus being on social justice. Before we begin, I have a few housekeeping matters just to go through. We have 4 exits in this building, 2 up the top and 2 down below. Bathrooms are all up the stairs and on this level of the theatre. There are also extra bathrooms on the upper floor. Can I please ask everyone to have their phones on silent, especially while sessions are going? We have refreshment, tea and coffee upstairs at all times for anybody who gets hungry or thirsty. Our salar rooms are in Alice Toy. They're all on the upper floor. And please see the ladies at registration if you cannot find the salar rooms. We have concurrent sessions, so our main sessions will be in this hall. This is the main hall, Kurila Gantner, and then all concurrent sessions that you see on the program will be on up the stairs and on the upper level. So G01, G02, they're all up on the other floor. All key sessions in this hall will be video recorded, so please bear that in mind. To begin the formal part of our event, I would like to first acknowledge the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation who are the traditional custodians of the land on which Melbourne campus stands. I would also like to pay respects to the Wurundjeri elders, past and present, and extend this respect to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people from other communities who are here today. To welcome you all to AAISC4, I would like to introduce Professor Muhammad Abdullah, Director for the Islamic Thought, for the Centre for Islamic Thought and Education, and convener of the 4th Australian Islamic Schooling Conference and Forum, Islamic Schooling Renewal, a focus on pedagogy. Thank you.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد اللهم ربنا لك الحمد والشكر كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك اللهم إنا نعوذ بك منك لا نحصي ثناء عليك أنت كما أثنيت على نفسك Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. May the peace and blessings of God be upon you all. Good morning, g'day, how you going, and so forth. So that's how everything I said in Arabic translates into these few words, sort of. Thank you for being here. My name is Muhammad Abdullah, and I also wish to acknowledge that we meet on the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and emerging. And also allow me to remind myself and yourselves that we are in NAIDOC week celebration. And we would be socially unjust if we were to fail to mention that we are celebrating NAIDOC week. And for our Australian colleagues and also for our colleagues coming from the many parts of the world with us today, NAIDOC week celebrations are held around the country each July to celebrate the history, culture, and achievements of the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. The week is celebrated not just among Indigenous people or Indigenous and Aboriginal communities, but also increasingly the wider society is taking part in NAIDOC week. And I think we as representatives of Islamic schools must become more cognizant of the fact that we need to also engage in doing so. My friends, this year's theme of NAIDOC week is Voice, Treaty, Truth. And the sub-theme is Let's Work Together for a Shared Future. And I think this theme in itself is quite sufficient and significant and very much aligns with what we are trying to do here in the next couple of days. I would like to begin by thanking some of our sponsors and supporters for following the dictum and the maxim of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, لا يشكر الله من لا يشكر الناس, who does not thank people does not thank God. And so I would like to begin by thanking the Islamic Schools Association of Australia for being our sponsor and supporter, for a very dear friend and colleague and a distinguished scholar in the field, Professor Abdullah Saeed from the University of Melbourne, who has generously sponsored us in this campus, but also Education Perfect, EduFun Australia, the Melbourne University Press, and MCCA, all of whom have been wonderful supporters and sponsors of our event. I also would like to, at this stage, pay a special thanks to our keynote speakers, starting with the Grand Mufti of Australia, Dr. Ibrahim Abu Muhammad, who will be speaking to us this morning, but also will be giving the keynote speech at the gala dinner tonight. And so we're quite honored to have him with us. Ahlan wa sahlan. And I'm particularly delighted to have with us today Professor Al-Attas, all the way from Singapore, who will be honoring us with the first keynote speech this morning. So thank you for being with us. And also Professor Stephen Dobson, who's come to us all the way from Wellington, New Zealand, and he will be given the second keynote speech tomorrow, inshallah, God willing. And also Sister Afifa Sayyid, who has come also all the way from the USA to give the third keynote speech. And welcome to Sister Afifa. I can't see her, but I'm sure she's here somewhere. I can't even see Stephen either. So I will give Stephen 5 minutes. If he doesn't come, we'll cancel his keynote. I must also thank a very dear and a very special friend who is with us here, none other than Sister Miriam Silva, who also will be speaking this morning. I could go on the whole day speaking about how wonderful Sister Miriam Silva is, but I can sum it up in a few words: a most wonderful human being. So thank you for being with us. We're really honored. A special thanks also to Brother Osman Karaila, who will be representing ISSA. So thank you very much for being with us. But also thanks to all of our participants from Oman, from Qatar, from Germany, from Singapore, from Malaysia, and of course Australia. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, this is the 4th Islamic Schooling Conference with a special focus this year on social justice. The purpose of our annual conferences, the three that has passed now, are really to explore, to share, to challenge, and also hopefully to start making a contribution, a genuine, serious contribution to the reshaping, renewal of Islamic schools based on empirical evidence grounded in rigorous research that is well connected with the stakeholders of all Islamic schools. It is also to showcase the wonderful work of many of the Islamic schools, the wonderful work of the educators who are exercising a great amount of effort in trying to educate the future generation of our nation. It is to network also with others. It's a wonderful opportunity to network with people from Australia, but also across the globe, inshallah. But also to learn from one another, to learn how best to enhance teaching, how best to enhance learning, to learn how best we can improve ourselves in this journey, but also how can we become instruments of change, positive change, for the very same people who have been given to us as a responsibility, the students whom we are looking after or meant to look after. As for this conference that is focusing on social justice, the conference will explore, it'll examine, it'll share ideas, it is intended to share thoughts, research findings on how do Islamic schools, how do educators, how do stakeholders of Islamic schools engage with the very significant and very pertinent issue of social justice. The aim is not to have a talk fest, but rather the aim is really to provoke. The aim is to challenge the status quo, not for the sake of challenging and not for the sake of simply empty criticism, but rather to become better at dealing with social issue or social justice issues. This year's conference is slightly different to the previous conferences in that we have included the Teachers Forum. You know how it is with conferences. People say it's boring, so we want it because it's very academic, very rigid, sometimes abstract. I see a lot of smiling faces. So we added a forum where the teachers who come with their energy and their vigor and their enthusiasm, and they will share with us in the forum, inshallah, the excellent work that they are doing, that they will share with us how they have been engaging with issues of social justice in their own classrooms. This year's conference, as I said, is slightly different with that practical dimension. Many important issues around social justice will be discussed in the next 2 days, and I invite you to check the program for details. Of course, a very important part of social justice is looking after our own environment, and so we have decided to go green this year and with paperless programs. So we have not printed the programs. We're going green. I should have worn some green clothes also, but I don't think that would look very nice. So our coffee and cups are sustainably sourced also. The utensils used will be 100% recyclable or recyclable. But also the food that we are using and the caterer that we are using are local caterers who are offering opportunities for many people looking for work. They are a local family that started small and now they are doing pretty well, alhamdulillah. And we have been told all the food that remains will not go to waste, but they have their own ways of distributing that food. So that is all great. My friends, quickly and finally, SITE is in its 3rd year. The Center for Islamic Thought and Education is in its 3rd year now, and I'm grateful to be working at the University of South Australia with a team of dedicated researchers and administrators. Ramila, where is Ramila? Outside. See, the dedicated workers, you see. And Jen Manning, who's outside also, I think. But also Dr. Nadeem Memon, my dear brother Dylan Chown, Dr. Mahmoud Nati, somewhere sitting, Dr. Nizar Faris and Dr. Nada Ibrahim. But also thanks to the many PhD students with us, including Nadia Salim, who also will be presenting at this conference. I do hope that you'll find the next 2 days invigorating, thought-provoking, challenging, and will allow us to rethink the way perhaps we are doing things in Islamic schools. Good to see you all, and thank you very much, and have a most wonderful 2 days. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Abdullah, and please forgive me for not putting up your slide first, but you are very distinctive, so. This was Professor Muhammad Abdullah. Sorry. May I please introduce now Grand Mufti Dr. Ibrahim Abu Muhammad. Say a few words.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وأصلي وأسلم على جميع الأنبياء والمرسلين. اللهم إنا نتوسل بك إليك ولا أعز منك عليك أن تجعل هذا اللقاء خالصا لوجهك الكريم. اللهم ما كان لك فتقبله منا، وما كان حظ نفوسنا فتوله عنا واجعله لك يا ذا الجلال والإكرام. السيدات والسادة، أبدأ شاكرا وممتنا لمركز الفكر الإسلامي والتعليم والدكتور عبد الله سعيد من جامعة ميلبورن وكل القائمين على هذا التنظيم الذين شرفوني بالحديث إليكم والوقوف أمامكم اليوم.
Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, first and foremost, I want to express my gratitude to the Center for Islamic Thought and Education, and also to Professor Abdullah Saeed for co-sponsoring this event. I want to thank them for honoring me and asking me to come today to present in the presence of this noble gathering.
ونحن نتحدث عن المدارس الإسلامية، يجب أن نؤكد أنها تقدم خدمة تعليمية عظيمة القدر والقيمة، وأن هذا هو أحد الأسباب الرئيسة في إقبال الناس عليها. لكن يجب أن نتذكر وأن نذكر أصحابها ومن يديرونها ومن يطبقون مناهجها أن السبب الأول والمباشر هو وجود اللغة العربية والتربية الإسلامية في تلك المدارس.
And as we speak about Islamic schools, it is important to recognize at the outset that they are providing a tremendous service to the community, and they are providing an excellent positive contribution to the community. And it is important also to bring to note at this stage that the reason so many parents send their children to Islamic schools, one is for the very fact that it contributes positively to their shaping and to their making of their identity, but also one of the fundamental reasons that parents send their children to these schools is for the language, Arabic language particularly, and Islamic studies in specific.
ومن ثم يجب تعظيم هذه اللغة وتعظيم أثرها في المجتمع. وإذا كانت اللغة العربية والتربية الإسلامية إذا همشت أو تهمش معلموها أو تهمشت برامجها، فهذا يعني أن خللاً في قاعدة البناء تسرب إلى السطح وأصاب الطول والعرض والارتفاع.
And given that a significant reason for joining Islamic schools is Islamic studies and Arabic studies, we must be mindful that these subjects are given their significance, that they are paid attention to, that they're not sidelined, and that they don't become simply subjects to attract only clients, but rather they should be well thought of and they should be given their due, and those teachers and administrators who are looking after those two significant subjects must also be looked after in terms of training and otherwise, so that Islamic studies does not become weakened, Arabic studies does not become weakened, for if they do become weakened, that will tremendously impact Islamic schools in all directions.
والتصدع إذا أصاب بناء من القاعدة ووصل إلى الطول والعرض والارتفاع فإنه يصعب علاجه بالمرة. وأن القائمين الذين تسببوا في هذا التصدع عن تقصير أو عن عمد لا يدركون الفلسفة الأساسية التي قامت من أجلها المدارس الإسلامية، وأن الناس يشدون الرحال ويغيرون مساكنهم لتكون بجوار مدارس أبنائهم.
And the similitude of any weakness in Islamic schools can be exemplified to that of a crack that might be found in a building. If this crack goes across the building, length and width-wise, then it can become quite difficult to fix that building. And equally, if the weakness or weaknesses in the very subjects for which parents sent their students to school for become that weakness and that crack in the construction and the building of Islamic schools, then it may be possible that the damage is irreparable unless we pay attention again to those subjects for which parents sent their children to those schools, and in fact shifted houses in some instances and to live nearby Islamic schools for the very purpose of looking after and protecting the identity of the religious identity of their students, which those schools promise to give.
دعوني أذكركم أيها السادة والسيدات بما ننساه أحيانا. فأعظم رسل الله بإطلاق بعث معلما، ومن ثم فمكانتكم في الدنيا كبيرة، وأثركم في تكوين الشخصية عظيم، وأجركم عند الله موفور، ولكن تذكروا أنه كلما ارتفع الموقع والمكانة كلما تعاظم الحساب والعقاب، وبقدر سمو المكان والمكانة وبقدر عظم الأجر يكون حجم الوزر والتجريم عند تعمد الإهمال أو القصور والتقصير في أداء الرسالة لا قدر الله.
And it is important to remind ourselves at this stage that the greatest of messengers, of prophets that were sent to humanities were teachers. Their greatest profession was teaching. And so teaching is fundamentally important and significant in the grand scheme of Islamic schools and in the grand scheme of human life. And with this great and noble privilege of being teachers comes also a great responsibility. And with this responsibility comes accountability as well. And if we fail in our responsibility towards teaching and providing the best of teaching for the students who have been entrusted to us, then we would have lacked in that accountability, and we would have lacked in the very purpose for which we have been given this privilege to teach.
وبما أننا ننتمي إلى المدارس الإسلامية فإننا نحظى بشرف هذا الوصف الإسلام، ومن ثم يجب أن ننهض بهذا الوصف العظيم. وتصوروا معي أن لدينا 62 مدرسة إسلامية فيها من المدرسين ما بين 5 إلى 10 آلاف مدرس، وفيها من الطلاب ما يزيد عن 40,000 طالب. تصوروا معي أن هؤلاء جميعا يتحولون إلى جسور لنقل القيم الإسلامية والعدل الإسلامي والخلق الإسلامي والحضارة الإسلامية. تصوروا مدى سعة الفرصة المتاحة لنا كمسلمين لنقدم خدمة إلى بقية المجتمعات، لأننا نحمل رحمة الله للعالمين. تصوروا معي حجم هذا الدور العظيم.
He said, I'd like you to imagine with me the magnitude of the responsibility. As far as we know, there are about 62 plus Islamic schools. Whether they call themselves Islamic or not, we think there are about 62. And among the 62 plus Islamic schools, there may be about 4 to 5, maybe 6,000 staff. And also perhaps 40,000 to 50,000 students. And so this is not an insignificant number. Rather, it is quite significant. And if we are to make of those 40 students, if we are to provide for them the right nurturing and the right education, so that they can become bridges between us and the wider community, between themselves and the wider community, whether Muslim or non-Muslim community. Imagine with me, he said, if we can nurture these 40,000 students so they can carry those noble universal values that Islam advocates of mercy and compassion and inclusivity and universalism, then the outcome and the consequence would be quite significantly positive and quite magnificent in a sense.
وتعلمون أيها السادة والسيدات أن هذا الوصف الإسلامي يعاني ترنحا وإعياء في الزمن الحاضر، يعاني تشويها ويعاني تدليسا ويعاني أن الإرهاب ينتسب إليه ويعاني أشياء كثيرة. دوركم في رصد هذا التجني أولا، وثانيا أنتم أبناء حضارة قدمت للدنيا أعظم ما عرفته الدنيا من قيم. أنتم أبناء حضارة المنهج العلمي، أنتم أبناء حضارة التسامح، أنتم أبناء حضارة العدل، أنتم أبناء الثقافة التي تسامحت مع الثقافات الأخرى مع اليهودية ومع الثقافة المسيحية واستوعبتها وقدمتها للدنيا وقدمت مفكريها للناس، فنحن الذين ترجمنا سقراط وأرسطو إلى الدنيا، ولولا الثقافة الإسلامية ما عرفت الدنيا سقراط وأرسطو. ومن هنا فالدور كبير والتحدي عظيم، والمواجهات يجب أن تأخذ المنهج العلمي. عليكم أنتم تحديداً مسؤولية اعتدال الميزان وبناء التصور الحقيقي للإنسان ومعالجة قضاياه، وبخاصة وأنكم تحملون تاريخياً حضارة من أعظم الحضارات امتزجت بنظام في دولة تتميز بالتعددية الثقافية، تتميز بالعدالة، قدمت لكم من وسائل العلم والتكنولوجيا ما تستطيعون به أن تحققوا أهدافكم. من هنا يكون الدور كبير والتقصير فيه خطير وعظيم.
The Mufti said that sadly in today's global world there is a distortion of Islam and the message of Islam, whether by its own adherents in the name of Islam perpetrating acts of violence or acts of terrorism or acts of radicalization, or a distortion of Islam and its message from other quarters and other mediums. And this makes the challenge the more problematic and the more difficult to overcome. And the responsibility of trying to sift through these challenges and provide a solid, concrete, and well-established solution and response is not an easy task. But it is a task, nevertheless, that has been placed on the shoulders of people like yourselves, educators, who are not only carrying a responsibility, and a tremendous responsibility, of educating the future generation of the community, but also helping them to distill through these challenges and being able to offer a rebuttal or a response that is moderate, that is balanced, that is grounded, and that is well-founded. He says, so given that the responsibility is huge, we must not also forget that you represent also a civilization that for centuries has been a bridge between other civilizations. A civilization that coexisted peacefully with various civilizations, that has coexisted with Jewish communities, with Christian communities, and communities which did not belong to a particular faith. You represent also and carry the heritage of a civilization that translated the works of Socrates and the works of Aristotle, without which they would not have been found, or they would not have been transmitted or transferred to the Western European civilization. You have come from, or you represent, or you carry the legacy of a civilization that arguably introduced the scientific method, that arguably translated the wealth of the ancient legacies so that it became that civilizational bridge between it and many other civilizations. So the task, as you can imagine, is not easy. But in providing solutions, we must be cognizant of the fact that there is nothing better than moderation. There is nothing better than being between two extremes and being well-grounded and being aware and cognizant and acknowledge the fact that civilizations rely on one another and nothing comes in a vacuum. In addition to this, to recognize the fact that you're operating within a context, an Australian context that is multicultural, that is inclusive, and that has provided us and everybody with ample opportunities to be able to work in this way, to become a bridge, a civilizational bridge, but also a bridge that is moderate and that is between two extremes, and that will provide solid and concrete workable solutions.
ما أشرت إليه وما استمتعتم بترجمته قبل قليل يوجب عليك أن يكون أداؤك متميزاً، وأن يكون وجودك بين غير المسلمين إضافة أخلاقية وإضافة علمية وإضافة حضارية. ولكي يصل صوتك إلى الآخرين يجب أن يكون ميزان العدالة معتدلاً ومستقيماً في نفسك أولاً. فإذا اختل ميزان العدالة فيك اختل كل الدور الذي يمكن أن تقوم به.
And therefore this responsibility is large, it is big, it's a huge responsibility which makes your role quite distinct as educators. It's a very distinct role. But this role, this distinction must by necessity be coupled with virtuous qualities. It must be coupled with knowledge. It must be coupled with experience. It must be coupled with relevance and practicality. And importantly, it must be also coupled with a scale, a balance of moderation, a scale of fairness and justice and social justice and equity, starting from within yourself first. For if that scale and that balance of justice fails within you, then the contributions that you may make as an educator may be more problematic. So first and foremost, one must look within to make sure that that balance of justice and social justice within us is stable and is balanced and is moderate.
أيها الإخوة والأخوات، إذا كان من العيب الذي يخدش الإنسانية ويطعن في وجودها أن ينتشر الظلم فيها، فمن الفضيحة أن يكون هذا الظلم في مؤسسة إسلامية. ومن ثم فمن العار ومن الإثم ومن الجريمة أن يوجد في المدارس الإسلامية من يظلم، مدرسين أو عمال أو طلاب، بصرف النظر عن الدين أو الجنس أو اللغة. العدل هو العدل، والعدل قامت به السماوات والأرض. هذه الممارسة الشاذة التي أعيذكم بالله منها تجعل القائمين على هذا الأمر تنزع عنهم الوصف الإسلامي وتصنفهم ضمن من يأكلون أموال الناس بالباطل ويصدون عن سبيل الله. لما؟ لأنهم يرفعون الشعار الإسلامي ويمارسون نقيضه، وتلك فضيحة يجب أن تتنزه عنها المدارس الإسلامية، أصحابها ومن يديرونها والقائمون عليها ومن يساهمون فيها ومن يساندونها. العدل أساس الملك، والعدل قامت به السماوات والأرض. ولو اختل ميزان العدل في السماوات والأرض للحظة واحدة لهدمت السماوات والأرض. اتفضل خلاص.
So the opposite, of course, of justice and social justice is a word in Arabic, dhulm. Dhulm can simply be translated as injustice, but it actually has a deeper connotation. Dhulm is darknesses, right? It's a darkness, oppression, and the opposite of social justice is actually darkness. And he says if the theme is social justice and the imperative is justice, and the label of schools are Islamic schools, then by necessity at the core of these institutions should be justice and social justice. And if social justice and justice are at the core of these schools, then equally, by necessity, there should be no injustices committed in these schools against anyone within these schools, whether teachers, whether staff, whether students, whether parents, whether administrators, regardless of their faith, regardless of their gender, regardless of their background. For justice needs to be applied equally amongst all, especially if one gives themselves the attribution of Islamic, then they must therefore be mindful that the justice which makes up the foundation of these schools should be implemented across the school. Otherwise, it becomes quite problematic if within the very same schools that call themselves Islamic, but injustices are taking place within against the stakeholders, all of them, or any of them, then that could cause difficulties and challenges compounded for these schools. And he says, allow me to remind you and myself also at this stage that if justice was to become absent in the heavens, then the heavens would be destroyed. And if justice was to be absent in this world and in our relations, then this world and our relations will be rendered rather problematic and difficult. And so there can be we cannot speak enough about the significance, and we cannot emphasize enough about the importance of justice and its place in Islamic schools.
وأخيرا أيها الإخوة والأخوات، أذكركم بالحكمة التي تقول إن الحقيقة المرة أفضل من الخداع المريح. هذه تحديات أحمل الكثير منها، طرحت أمامكم اليوم بعضها لعلها تكون في اعتباركم إن شاء الله في المستقبل، وقد تشرفت بلقائكم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
He says, and finally, I hope you will learn some Arabic after the speech. No, he didn't. He didn't say that. I just added that. He says, allow me to remind you that better truth, a truth that is bitter, is better than fooling ourselves. And so it is important to be realistic and to be able to talk about these things and challenge ourselves with these things. And thank you very much for allowing me to speak. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that enlightening and incredible address, Grand Mufti. I would like to now introduce Professor Abdullah Saeed, Sultan of Oman, Professor of Arabic and Islamic Studies and Director of the National Center for Contemporary Islamic Studies at this University of Melbourne.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Professor Muhammad Abdullah, the convener of the conference, Dr. Ibrahim Abu Muhammad, the Grand Mufti of Australia, my fellow panelists, distinguished guests, speakers, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, may I extend a very warm welcome to you all to the University of Melbourne and Asia Institute. I would like to congratulate Professor Muhammad Abdullah and his team for continuing with this very important International Islamic Education Conference, now into its fourth year. This conference is making a great contribution to Islamic education in Australia and also internationally. Excuse my voice. Let me just say a couple of words about Islamic education. Debates on Islamic education in the modern period really begins in the mid to late 19th century under the theme of reform of Islamic education. And this was initiated by figures such as Sayyid Ahmad Khan in India and Sheikh Muhammad Abdu in Egypt. But Islamic education is not new. In fact, the very beginning of Islam is fundamentally connected with learning, knowledge, and education. the very first verses revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam were about education. The very first word revealed was Iqra, meaning recite or read. In the very first 5 short verses that were revealed, we have 6 words that are connected to education and learning. Iqra means recite. Allama means God taught. And Ya'lam is associated with knowing. And Qalam is associated with pen. 6 words, 2 of them repeated in the very first verses of the Quran. That is the beginning of Islam, and that is the beginning of Islamic education. It was this spirit of the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam that provided the foundation for Muslims to create a knowledge-based civilization. It was this spirit that led to the development of a vast array of disciplines and areas of knowledge, from Quranic studies to hadith to fiqh to philosophy and theology to medicine, logic, mathematics, and engineering. This massive growth in the production and transmission of knowledge made cities like Baghdad, Cairo, Damascus, and Cordoba the envy of the world for centuries. Thank you. Since then, Muslim scholars, the ulama, the mystics, and educators have contributed a whole range of ideas about education based on their observations and practice. This knowledge is part of our heritage in Islamic education. This means we are not really trying to create or invent an area of knowledge today called Islamic education. We are in fact building on the great work that our great scholars and ulama and educators have done for many, many centuries. One of the key figures is, of course, Imam Ghazali. But we are also trying to do something slightly different that is relevant to our context today. We are trying to meet a wide array of challenges that are posed to us by our modern context. Let me mention very briefly some of the characteristics of this modern context. I can summarize them as a strongly scientific outlook, dominance of materialism in thinking and practice, weakening of religious institutions, values and norms, a strong sense of individualism, fluidity of values and norms, theories about our existence and life that are at odds with Muslim understandings, an increasingly narrow space for religion and God, and finally, an unprecedented level of interaction between people of different religious traditions and faiths. In a conference like this, we are trying to come up with principles, methods, ideas, strategies, and frameworks that will help us today in educating our next generation while keeping an eye on our modern context. Our education should help create a generation of Muslims with some important characteristics. Again, let me summarize that. They should have a strong Islamic moral character. They should have mastery of various areas of knowledge and life skills. They should have the ability to contribute to the betterment of their society, relying on that knowledge and skills. And finally, and most importantly, they should have the ability to think critically and creatively. And this is very, very important. I wish you all the best in your scholarly deliberations and discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Saeed. I would now like to introduce Ms. Miriam Silva, an experienced leader across multiple industries, including banking, pharmaceuticals, and agriculture. Miriam Silva holds numerous positions on boards and committees, including UniSA Council, Malik Fahd Islamic School, the Islamic Museum of Australia, Centre for Muslim Wellbeing in Victoria, SA Film Corporation Board, Chair of the Premier's Council for Women in South Australia, Chair of SEDA in South Australia and Northern Territory. She volunteers with a number of organisations, including the Muslim Women's Association of South Australia, and is patron of International Women's Day Committee. She is a member of the South Australian Women's Honour Roll 2011, recipient of the Governor's Multicultural Award for the private sector in 2012, and is the multicultural patron for the South Australian Police Academy. Please put your hands together for Ms. Miriam Silva.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would also like to acknowledge that we meet on the lands of the Wurundjeri people and of the Kulin Nation and pay my respects to elders past and present. On behalf of the University of South Australia, given that I am a council member and Brother Muhammad and team are from University of South Australia, I would like to welcome you all to this conference and acknowledge our special guests and pass on my thanks to everyone for attending the program today for this very important Islamic schooling conference, and you've heard lots about why it's so important as well. I also would like to have a special welcome and thank you to my Malik Fahd Islamic School team here. So we have a couple of board members and some staff. Perhaps you'd like to just stand up. I'll tell you why. Go and stand up or wave, all of you. Malik Fahd team and the board members. Come on, Fayez and Yasin. I can see you sitting down there. There we go. And the reason I would like to pay the special respect to the Malik Fahd team is because of what they've gone through, and I'd really like to acknowledge all of them for their commitment through everything that they've been through, for their total commitment to students, and we just wouldn't be where we are without all of them and without the staff, and I really would like to extend my sincere thank you to all of them. What most of you may not know is in 2008, the late former Prime Minister Bob Hawke had a vision, and he said Islam is the fastest growing religion in the world, and we need to have a centre in Australia where we can teach people about Islam, because if we don't increase understanding of Islam, the world will go into a bit of a crazy place. So in 2008 he had that vision, and we actually started, the University of South Australia was the one that said yes, in terms of social justice and something we want to do, this is really important. And so they started this, as it was called then, the Centre for Muslim and Non-Muslim Understanding. And funnily enough, the aim at that time was to build the University of South Australia scholarship and commitment to social justice and reconciliation. And that was actually the aim in 2008. We had a number of ups and downs and a number of false starts, but we never, University of South Australia never ever gave up, kind of that vision and, the fact that we had to keep going with this, and Bob Hawke never gave that up either. And so in 2016, we were very lucky to convince Professor Muhammad Abdullah and his family to come to South Australia to start the Centre for Islamic Thought and Education. And the university is just very proud of the work that Brother Muhammad and the team are doing and have done, so much so that in our last probably 2 council meetings ago, He came to present the great work that the centre has been doing, and it was acknowledged, unanimously acknowledged by all council members and the Chancellor and the Vice-Chancellor and the executive team that, you know, this is just a fundamental part of what University of South Australia does, and a fundamental part of South Australia, and a fundamental part of, you know, what everyone's doing. And Brother Muhammad was certainly acknowledged for his leadership and the fact that it's not only recognised in South Australia and Australia, but also globally as well. But really, I can't tell you enough, you know, Bob Hawke always said, you know, he said to me, I'm sure he said to Brother Muhammad, he said to numerous people, he always said, we have to educate people about Islam. We have to do it because it's when people don't understand what Islam is, that's when we actually have problems. And the fact that we have so many amazing teachers and educators in the room, you know, the responsibility actually sits with all of you as well. And I know you all do an amazing job, and that's why you're here, to learn different tips and techniques and to share with each other so that we can continue to do that. So on that note, I'll say thank you for listening, and I really hope that you make sure that you meet new people, so meet 10 new people every day and talk to them and share what you've learnt and share your experiences and welcome to the conference.
Thank you, Ms. Silver. To conclude our welcome addresses, I would like to call up Mr. Osman Karolia. Osman Karolia is Head of Community Engagement at University of Brown. He has been in education for 24 years and has previously been principal of 2 schools and served on the board as a director and advisory board member of a number of other Islamic schools.
Okay, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity, and I must say it's an extraordinary privilege and honor to be addressing so many people from across the sector, not just here in Australia, but also globally. And I also commend Dr. Abdullah, Professor Abdullah, the team at site for bringing all of this together. We are moving through extraordinary times in Islamic education. It's a time of tremendous change, a time of real growth. We've gone from what was, when we first started out teaching in schools many, many, many years ago, places where people just wanted their children to have a very traditional learning experience, to a new dynamic, a new paradigm, a new expectation from a different generation of parents who don't just want their children to get the traditional schooling experience. They also want their children to have a world-class experience, so that when they see what other children are having in other sectors, they want those same experiences for their children. And a lot of that is themed around social justice, inclusion, and many of the activities associated with that. You see, the reality is we live in a system today where there's no shortage of great schools. Public, independent, there's options for everyone. And if you want your children to get a great education, you don't have to look very far. But if you want your children to have a great experience, suddenly the options become a lot less. And if Islamic schooling wants to go to the next level, and if Islamic schooling wants to not just be a leader amongst educators for their own communities, but for other communities, it's essential that a number of things happen, that they engage with the communities around them, engage with their local communities a bit further, establish strong links with indigenous communities, establish strong links with communities regionally. And over the next couple of days, inshallah, you'll all have the opportunity to hear of what different schools and what different people are doing, so that we can share this dream. You see, we are much stronger when we collaborate together, and there's so much that we can achieve by sharing our ideas and our resources. I know that we're a bit stressed for time and we've got to move on with the program. I've got whisper. So I will catch up with all of you, inshallah, during morning tea, lunch, etc. My one advice I'd give to all of you, please, do not leave Melbourne, do not leave this conference over the next couple of days without sharing details, so that we can work together. Those channels of communication are open, and that together we can try and take Islamic education, not just in Australia but globally, into a whole new direction, so that we give the very best of opportunities, not just to our staff and our students, but also to the communities which we serve. Thank you very much. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum.